Welcome to another episode of Mysteries Unknown. I got a really good podcast for you tonight. I got a really strange one. I've got Jacob with me, and Jacob had some really strange things happen to him on a property in Indiana, all the way from when he was a teenager till recently on a fishing trip. We're going to be going over all that. He has had everything from rocks thrown at him. He's seen orbs. He's had a Class A encounter with one of these creatures about 100 yards away with bright red eyes while he was fishing with a buddy. A lot of stuff we're going to dive into tonight. You don't want to miss this one. It's really good. But I just want to say thanks for being here and hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate everybody, and I could not do this podcast without you. If you've got a mystery or an encounter you would like to send me, you can send it to me by email at mysteriesunknownpodcast@gmail.com. But let's jump right in the story. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Man, sitting here drinking some tea this morning. I'm excited to hear your encounters, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And so why don't you just take us back to when you were a kid and kind of walk us through that encounter?
Oh, it was probably around when I was 16 or so. It may have been before then. I can't remember if I had my license or not, but, living out here in the country and stuff, we'd drive anyway. We didn't have a license, but, it was bow season, and I would go up to this one spot, and it's about a mile or so up the road from my mom and dad's. And, they'd let me skip school and stuff to go deer hunting. And my buddy's dad would let me use his tree stand through the week. He'd hunt in the weekends. And so I pulled my car up there. There's a skidder trail that goes up the side of the hill. And I'd park down at the bottom of that and then, walk up. It's probably 100 yards or so up to the top of it. And as I was walking up it, I'd hear something to my right. And as I, kind of researched a little bit, sounds and stuff that I heard, that, it come back really similar to barred owls whenever they're courting each other. They're a pretty big owl that usually hang around the lakes and stuff like that. But there ain't no lakes around the area I was hunting. But not to say there wouldn't be owls there. But anyways, it was down on ground level, right next to me. It'd make that weird sound. And then I'd keep walking, and then there'd be one to the left of me. And on the left side was just like a straight drop off down the hillside. And the other side was just kind of level, maybe a little higher than my head. And just as I kept walking up that hillside, there'd be one to the left of me, one to the right of me. And I never heard anything walking or pacing beside me or nothing like that. It was just really super weird. And I always thought, whenever I was younger, I thought it was coyotes, like maybe contact calling each other or something like that. I don't know if they do that or not, but it freaked me out. As a teenager, all I had was just a little junky old bow that a buddy had gave to me. And so, scared, I get all the way up there, and then you take a little 4-wheeler trail to the left, and then I don't know, there's probably 50 yards or so. You have to walk down through that 4-wheeler trail, and it goes around a couple corners and stuff. Then his tree stand was just right there off the side of the 4-wheeler trail. And I got up in the stand there, was hanging out and stuff. And, it's still dark, and, you start hearing everybody going to work. The school bus is coming down the roads and stuff. So it's starting to get daylight. And I was just sitting there waiting, start seeing through the woods pretty good. And then shortly after all that, all the vehicles and stuff, because the road was, I don't know, it's a little ways back behind you. I couldn't really give you a really accurate way, but it's not close enough you could see any vehicles or anything like that. But you could hear them going up and down the hills up through there. And after all that kind of calmed down, there weren't really much noise, and I'm just sitting there waiting and looking around, real slowly. Don't want to get busted by a deer or something. If it's creeping up, you turn it around, and just out of nowhere, I mean, it sounded like a gorilla. Just just makes just this loud grunting sound. And it scared me to death. It was just like a rah, 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 rah. Just I mean, it was a lot longer than that, and definitely way louder. But but I tell you, you don't. It sounded like a gorilla, but a gorilla didn't go through my head at first. But I'd seen a big black cat at one time before then, and I don't know why that was the first thing that went through my head, that it was a cat making that noise. But and I was scared to death because I mean it was I don't know, it was less than 50 yards away from me because where the tree stand set, it just kind of the four-wheeler trail just went on past you, and it kind of just went down a little ravine, kind of like just like a washout, kind of like where the rain comes out of the fields up on the top of the hill there. It just all funnels down through there. It's just kind of dug out from all the rainwater. And there's big briar bushes down there. I mean, that's exactly where it came from. I don't know exactly what point down in that little spot, but I mean, it scared me to death. And no, I sat there for a long time, and I never heard another sound, never seen anything peeking out anywhere. There was nothing. And I guess I finally got enough courage to get down after so long. I mean, I don't remember exactly, but I had no idea that that possibly could have been that. I didn't see anything. So
Well, hello there. Didn't see you. Don't mind me, I'm just enjoying my Mysteries Unknown coffee. You know, it's the one thing that makes me feel, well, a bit more human. Rich, bold, and, dare I say, mysteriously delicious. Care for a cup? Get you some at mysteriesunknowncoffee.com.
being a little bit older in my 20s and stuff, I would we'd go catfishing all night long. I'd either go by myself or any of my buddies wanted to come. We'd go, and we're at a lake out here on the outskirts of Salem. I live here in southern Indiana, and there's a big lake up there. It's a reservoir they use for the water for the city and stuff. Just there ain't no gas motors allowed to be on the water or anything like that. We were out there one night, me and my good buddy and his two younger boys, and we were on the back side of the lake, and there's a big hillside on the back of it. It's real steep. I mean, you wouldn't want to walk up unless you just absolutely had to, an emergency or something. But we'd been out there fishing for quite a while, and just out of nowhere, a big old giant rock just hit out there out in front of us. It was a pretty good ways, and just the way that rock hit the water and stuff. I mean, there's no way it was a fish jumping out of the water. And as big as the rock was, I mean, as loud as it was, I mean, there ain't no way any human being could throw a rock that big that far out into the lake. And it freaked us all out, and the kids were pretty scared about it. And I don't know, that was different. And that's about whenever we first kind of came to the realization that maybe there's something out there. And it was we'd hear sticks and stuff breaking behind us, and there'd be just strange feeling, and we'd shine our lights and stuff back behind us, and so you never see nothing. I'd seen raccoons out there plenty of times. It's out there at the lake, people throw their bait down, and people that take their boats out there and stuff, they fillet their fish and throw the scraps right there at the edge of the water. So I mean, there's always snakes around, and there's always raccoons and possums and things like that. But you know, you'd get their eye shine or something, but there would never be nothing back behind us there in the woods. So couldn't ever figure it out. And then that time that rock hit the water, we just kind of packed up, and it never did make any noises or anything. Who knows what it really was, but that got me thinking that maybe there is a Sasquatch out here. I had a guy I used to work with at a sawmill, and he used to bug me all the time because I fished down there at the Ohio River where it borders between Indiana and Kentucky, and had some pretty good fishing spots down there, and I've caught some big old blue cats, big flatheads down there. And I always take pictures of them and post them on Facebook and stuff like that. And that guy he bugged me all the time. Man, I want to go fishing with you. I want to get on some of them big fish. And he didn't bother me too much, but I did. He just wasn't one of my people. I wasn't like a big fan of just taking random people to my fishing spots. But he bugged me enough, wore me down. I was like, "Come on, dude, let's go." So he ended up coming out to the house, and he ain't much on any of the weird stuff that's going on. He don't believe in none of it. After I'd found out later on. But as we get down there to the river, and the river was coming down. It had been flooding, and it was a pain to get down there to the river because there's a lot of big trees and debris and stuff just all over the trails on the way down through the woods there, down to the river. We managed to get our way down through there. We get our poles set up and all that good stuff, and we're sitting there talking and stuff like that. And I can't remember exactly. I think I did kind of bring up the Bigfoot situation because I started noticing down beside one of my poles down there at the edge of the water, there was rocks being thrown into the water. They weren't big rocks, just small pebbles. I kept seeing one every now and again hitting the water down there. And that's why I ended up telling him, "You see him? Someone's throwing rocks." And he's like, "Man, them are shad jumping down there in the water." I said, "Man, I fish down here all the time. I know what the shad, the skipjack, I know what everything looks like. It's when they're grouped together there and they jump on the surface. These are just I'm like just watch." And I don't really remember if he ever seen the rocks really hitting the water when I was describing it to him or what. I don't know. But as we kept sitting there, and there were some other weird things going on. I know you like to stick to your Bigfoot stuff, but we'll stick with that. And I'm talking to him and stuff like that, and you could hear. I think there was you could hear something moving around back there if I remember right. But the rocks were still hitting the water occasionally, and I think it sounded more like someone had like a handful of sticks, small twigs, sticks, stuff like that. Kind of like the twisting sound of it. I mean, I don't really know what it was. I'm just kind of guessing on what that sound was. And I'm talking to him about I was like, "Dude," I said, "This is I've listened to plenty of podcasts because I've experienced stuff before. I said, this is Bigfoot behavior. Hearing sticks, breaking back there, twisting sounds. And there's rocks being thrown in the water." And he's like, "Man, there ain't no such thing as Bigfoot." He's like, "It's," he just did not want to entertain the thought that he's like, "There's probably just some kids back here. We'd shine our lights back behind us. There ain't nothing back here." Well, the spot where we're fishing at, it's mud down by the water. Once you get back behind there, there's, lots of sycamore trees and stuff like that. The roots are all exposed from being flooded, and then it goes back on up and then kind of goes into like pea gravel, kind of like. I turned around at one point and looked back there, and I seen a light. It's like a bluish white light, perfectly round. And I thought it was I see people down there all the time, hiking through the woods with their dogs or whatever. Uh, and it's moving down where that trail is back there, and it's going I mean, it would have been a speed of, somebody had to have been jogging, you know, but it wasn't, moving around side to side, like when someone holds a flashlight or something, it's all over the place. And it wasn't casting no light out. And that's what I told him. I said, "You see that light back there?" And he said, "Yeah." He's like, "I thought there was a car coming back through there." I said, "There ain't no way a car could come back here." I said, "There ain't no access at all to get a vehicle back here or anything like that." I said, "I don't know what it was." And I looked back, and it had started over again from the same when I first seen it, and it was coming back down the trail again. And it was just floating down through there, probably about the speed of someone jogging or almost running. He still didn't really entertain it too much. He thought it was a vehicle. I don't know. We started talking some more or whatever. It wasn't there anymore. But that was really weird, and I was starting to get really weirded out at that point. And and still occasionally there's rocks hitting the water still. I keep noticing them. I never got hit with the rock, but it was probably, I don't remember exactly, probably 10, 20 feet away from me where my pole was sitting. And we're just still talking away. We're not getting no action, no fish, or there, it just ain't so good. And we're still hearing stuff back behind us. And that's why I kept telling him that. I was like, dude, this is pretty sure this is, Bigfoot behaviors going on back here. And just out of nowhere, man, it sounded like someone picked up a log or something like that and just smashed it against a tree. And it made the loud boom. You heard all the debris scattered through the brush there. I mean, if somebody's back there screwing around, I always carry my 45 on my side. It's not a good idea to be messing around with old country boys out here trying to catch catfish. So I mean, it's kind of weird. And, and that scared me to death. I heard that loud boom, and that I mean, it couldn't have been, but 30, 40 yards behind us, maybe a little further, give or take, however you want. That's what I told him. I said, there's just too much going on here. And he's like, yeah. He's like, let's get out of here. So we get our rods reeled up and get everything back together, get our backpacks on, and he's getting ready to just like take off into the woods the way we came in. And I was like, bro, hold up. I was like, I said, I'm not going in those woods. I said, we'll just go the long way around. We'll walk down up the river here and come around the corner. And we were down on the mud end of it. And then once you get up so far, there's fossil beds up there. I mean, and this is right across from the city of Louisville. It's really close. And just on the other side of that flood wall, there's houses everywhere. And I mean, you wouldn't think that, Sasquatch would be in an area like this. But, and so he's like, okay, well, he finally agreed with me. So we walk up toward the rocks, and we get up there a little way. It's kind of difficult because the water's up a little higher than it usually is when we're down there fishing it. So you kind of had to walk up on the side of the rocks there. And it wasn't real easy, but once we got up to the corner there where the rock wall goes around to the left back towards the parking lot where my truck was parked at. And that's when I stopped there and I just looked back at the area we were fishing. And it was definitely less than 100 yards away, but man, it let out this ginormous roar that, I mean, my knees buckled. I almost fell down on the ground. And I mean, it hit me like a truck. I mean, it just rattled me to pieces. And I've never heard a sound like that. And, I mean, this has been several years ago, but I've looked and I've listened to so many other people's accounts that, and then they all talk like, it sounds like a lion roaring or kind of like that alligator bellow growl. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a combination of that and just scare you to death all at the same time. And just the way it, it's, I go to a lot of music festivals and stuff like that. I take my kids to, and it's pretty similar feeling to, feeling those big speakers whenever they're hitting real hard. You kind of feel that through your body. And it was probably one of the most bizarre things, because I mean, it was quiet down there. I mean, obviously you're hearing the water moving on the river, but I mean, it was like, so it was right in front of me screaming, but I mean, it was definitely a good ways away. There's a big rock wall that's about, I don't know, 10 foot tall or so. And I was just worried to death that it was just right there on that rock wall as we were walking up to get to a different trail to get up to the parking lot. But we made it down through there and, nothing else happened. We got up to the parking lot. Nothing was in the edge of the woods that, we never seen it other than just hearing the things and the trees, the stuff being broken. Oh, well, I left out. Whenever I was reeling in my poles, the rocks were coming super fast, and they're just hitting the water like crazy. And yeah, it was pretty terrifying. That made it even worse, because after we heard the big tree explode on the tree, it banged against a tree or a big rock back there, or whatever it was, and all that debris went scattering through the woods behind us, and we're reeling in, and then the rocks are just hitting the water and they're all in the same spot. It's like it never really moved anywhere, but maybe a couple inches in the same spot. And the rocks were starting to get a little bit bigger as I was reeling my poles in. They were splashing a lot more. But anyway, we made it back, and we were driving up the interstate coming home, and I was like, dude, I was like, what do you think was going on? Or, I mean, I don't remember exactly what I asked him, but he just wouldn't talk to me about it at all. And it's been years, and I haven't talked to him at all, other than he messaged me a while back. It was probably last summer. Asked me if I'd been catching any big fish. I was like, no, man, I hadn't been going. And that was it.
Man, that is some strange stuff. And these type of encounters can be some of the scariest because you don't know what's out there. And sometimes not seeing them is scarier than seeing them, because you just don't know what's going on. And I hear a lot of people describe those vocalizations like that. It just kind of goes through you and vibrates you to your bones. And I'm sure that really was very traumatizing and triggered you and brought back a lot of memories. But with all that, being said, how did that affect you?
It definitely put the brakes on going fishing in the dark. Yeah. And I mean, even still to this day, it's been a couple years ago. I'd have to sit down and really think about how long ago it was, but it's been several years. But yeah, it really slowed down my fishing a lot. And I'd go almost every day after work. When I'd get off work at the quarry there, the river's only a couple miles down the road. Now I'd go and fish for a couple hours and go home. But that was before this incident. Yeah, it definitely it made it hard to just. It's like I lost the motivation to go. Because you just had that in the back of your mind, like, well, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to this spot. It's all wide out in the open. It's not the best spot to go, but I have caught just a few fish there. But they're like, man, I just really don't want to be down there in the dark. And then my other buddy, he kept pushing me and pushing me to go, and I was like, man, I don't want to go down that river, and this lead us right on into the actual sighting that me and my best friend actually got to see one. My buddy kept, kind of giving me a hard way to go, and I told him everything. We're pretty close, and he believed me. Because we'd had experiences before with the rock being thrown out in the water and stuff like that. He was all big eyed, like, that really happened? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't have no reason to lie to you, man. I mean, I'm just telling you what happened to me. And I was like, I don't want to go down to that river and go fishing in the dark down there no more. And so he's like, man, he's like, well, let's just go up to the lake down the road here from your house. And I was like, man, I was like, not, I like to catch big fish. I don't want to go catch little channel cats. But finally, I was like, yeah, I ain't been out in a while other than just going to work and the grocery store. So let's go. So we got some bait out of the freezer and stuff, and set my poles up for smaller fish. And of course, my buddy, he's always late. He's always running behind. So it's already, if I remember right, I think it was already almost dark, or it may have been dark already by the time he got here. And it's only, I don't know, it's less than 10 miles from my house to this lake. You get way over there, and it's all Amish country over there. So it's all Amish houses down this road. And once it goes so far, it turns into gravel, and it's just woods and big giant big hills, and it's a lot of forest there. Well, as we're coming down the road, and there's like a little bitty S curve you kind of go through, and as we went around that S curve, my buddy is like, "Did you see those eyes?" And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" He's like, "There was red eyes looking at me." He's like, and he was just, I mean, kind of freaking out about it a little bit. I was like, no, I didn't see him, man. And he was starting to get upset with me a little bit, as we kept on driving through. And I parked the car down at the little spot where people park their trucks and trailers where they launch their boats and stuff. Yeah, he was just like getting like upset, like I wasn't believing. I was like, bro, I mean, I believe you. You seen some critter in the woods, it's eye shine. I mean, but he was just like, no, he's like, there's just something wasn't right about it. And I was like, okay. So we get out and get our poles and everything out. And we started catching fish pretty steadily. We catching pretty decent sized channel cats. We was having a good time. And we're I don't know. I don't really remember what really why he ended up shining his light around, but my buddy had shined his light down the dam back towards to where our car was parked. And that's when he hit it with the light. And it was just standing down there, staring straight at us. And, it had these big old orangish red eyes. And I mean, it was just standing there, just staring straight at us. And, it kind of, if you ever seen the Sasquatch Chronicles logo, I mean, it basically just looked like that with big orange eyes looking back at us. And we're about, I don't know, it was probably about 100 yards or so away from us, if I'm guessing right, if I remember right. I mean, it was a little bit of a distance, but it wasn't like, super far. And we're standing there. We kept looking at it and we're like, I mean, that's a freaking Sasquatch. I mean, it's huge. And, I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and that's what usually whenever I talk to people, and she's bigger now, but before when, she's probably about 5 or so, I was like, you see me standing next to her, she's like 3.5 foot tall. I was like, I'd be the same size as her standing next to him. And, you know, it's, it was, it was pretty shocking, but I mean, it just stood there. And I mean, me and my buddy were just in awe of this giant creature standing there. And it was crazy because then we were continuing to catch fish, and we'd take the light off of it, and then we'd shine it back, because obviously there's this thing there, and so every time we kept shining back, I mean, he was still there. It's like he never moved, and it never blinked its eyes, or it never moved its arms, nothing. It just stood there like a statue. We keep shining a light at it and stuff like that, and then here comes a car down the road. And it was pretty late at that point. I think it was probably around midnight or so, somewhere in that area. And so my buddy shined the light back over there, and it's not there. And this car comes down, and straight across from where we were fishing, at an angle to the right of us a little bit, that's where the boat ramp was. It's just a concrete boat ramp. I don't remember if it was a Jeep or if it was, I can't remember, an SUV. So, anyways, they turn around, make a little loop there at the top of the boat ramp, and they back down the boat ramp. They were getting they were going to start fishing, I guess, because they were getting stuff out. I mean, it was just a matter of minutes. They were grabbing everything up, threw it in the car. I said, I bet that thing's messing with them or something. And they're gone. And we're sitting there talking and shine a light back over it. It's standing there again. Big bright eyes looking straight at us. I mean, its eyes had to have been almost as big as tennis balls. I mean, it was huge. It's what me and my buddy had talked about. And I said, well, but the only thing I could relate it to would be like the size of a horse's eyes. Like whenever, I've been out spotlighting many a times and spotlighted, driving down through the fields and stuff, and there'd be a horse out there or a cow. It'd been close to that size, but I mean, its eyes were spaced apart so far. I mean, hell, I mean, my hand could have probably fit in between its eyes like that and not even covered its eyes. They were spaced apart pretty far. And Anyway, we're sitting there talking. I mean, it's just standing there and standing there. I'm like, oh my God, dude. I'm like, what is it doing? And, it never made a sound, never, no, any kind of vocalizations or anything. And here come another car. It'd probably been 30 minutes, maybe an hour. I don't know. I can't remember exactly. But shine back up there. It's gone again. And they do the same exact thing. They turn around, they back down the boat ramp, and they start getting stuff out. I can hear them over there talking. Well, they're probably drunk or something. You never know. And they did the same exact thing. They just started grabbing all their stuff and just get it in the car, and you'd hear them going for a long way. But anyways, so I mean, and I don't remember if it came back at that point, but that's when we're at the point where we haven't been catching fish for quite a while. This thing has been standing up there and standing up there, and then we come to the realization that, man, we got to walk right towards that thing to get back to the car. From where my car was parked, I mean, it was probably less than 50 yards away from my car. There was a big old tree standing there, and it was right beside that tree. But it didn't come back. I don't remember if it didn't come back or if it just ended up disappearing again at that point. We packed up our stuff and headed that way. I mean, we kept our lights, and we got some, I got a miner's light, and, it's LED, and my buddy's got good flashlights and stuff. And, they shoot how the LED lights are. We got to shoot them real tight beams for a long distance. We were pretty spooked, and we were scared. I mean, you see this giant creature standing there with glowing orange eyes. That's what my buddy told me whenever we first shined the light on it. He's like, I told you I seen red eyes in the woods. I said, well, I mean, they look more orange to me, but and I was like, I believed you, man. I was like, I just didn't see them. And, I'm not going to sit here and say that I seen it when I didn't see it, because, he got pretty offended by it whenever I didn't see it. He's all upset, thinking I didn't believe him or something. But anyways, and we mustered up the courage to get on going back down through there. It never came out. It never made any noise. And we got down there to the car, and, I can't remember if I went first or if he went first. We woods all around us. One of us put our stuff in, and then when we got done there, the other, we took the light and was keeping everything lit up, and the other guy put his stuff in. And we just got in the car, backed up and started to head out of there, and never did see it again. And that was a life-changing experience, seeing something that big. I mean, even at that distance, I mean, you still felt like you was just 2 inches tall.
That's a good way to describe it, man. That's a life-changing experience. That's the perfect way to describe something like that. And man, 100 yards, that's close enough, man. I wouldn't want to be any closer than that. That's just, and you're braver than me, man. I'd have been gone like those other people. And it makes you wonder what they saw or what happened with them. But man, how far away was that from the first original encounter you had with the other guy?
That lake's a little further north, so probably from that lake to the spot where I was fishing down there, as a crow flies, probably 45 miles or so, something like that.
It makes you wonder if maybe it was the same creature or because that's not that far for something like that to travel, man, as fast as these things are. But when you first saw that, when you saw the eyes, did you guys smell anything at all?
No, there weren't no smell. Never, no smell. There weren't no wood knocks or any of that. I mean, never heard anything. It was just when he ended up shining that light up there at one time, because he was still interested, because he had seen those red eyes up there. Because he kept saying they were red eyes. They were like an orangey red whenever the way I seen them. So maybe he was seeing them red, and I was seeing them orangish red. Kind of like how when the sun's setting, that real dark amber, red, orange color. But yeah, he was, and that's what ended up. He spotted it standing there. It may have been a little further than 100 yards. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to I'd have to ask him. I can't remember. It may have been a little over 100 yards. Neither one of us took our pistols with us or anything. I don't know why we. Usually go to the lakes and stuff. There, you don't have no issues with nobody. But when you go down there to the river, there's homeless people everywhere down there, and it's a terrible thing. But they leave their needles laying around all over the place and stuff like that. It's so I always take my gun down there. You never know, someone's gonna try to rob you or whatever down there.
I've heard that, man, and that's really unfortunate. I've heard that there's a problem with that down there, and unfortunately, and it ruins it for the fishing and people that are trying to take their families and stuff down there. So I hate that, man. It's an unfortunate situation for everybody, but man, you've experienced quite a bit, man, and that's some scary stuff, and it would have changed the way I looked at the woods and fishing for sure, absolutely. Going back to the encounter with your first guy you went fishing with, I guess it's almost what you would describe as an orb, man. What do you think that was about, man? What do you think that was?
Looking back at it, I've talked to a handful of people about that have seen lights in the woods and all that stuff. That's the only time I've ever seen anything that looked like that. I always hunted growing up. We dig roots out of the woods, ginseng hunting and stuff like that to make money, and mushroom hunt in the spring. And it's I'm always outside for the most part. I'm almost 40 now. I've slowed down quite a bit. But yeah, that's the only orb like thing I've ever seen. And I mean, if I'm guessing, it couldn't have been any bigger than like a dinner plate or maybe like a volleyball or a soccer ball, kind of like. I mean, it wasn't. It was like in between volleyball and like, I know it's not really a good comparison, but like a softball. I mean, it's hard to describe it, but it was just like that, like a blue LED light, kind of like in a way. It's a way it always stood out in my mind in a way, but it wasn't casting any light out. There weren't no, usually when you see someone with a flashlight, it kind of, out there by the river and stuff, it's kind of usually a little foggy. There's, what do you call it, pollen and stuff falling out of the trees. And, you'll see a light, you can see the beam off of it. But, this was just a glowing ball, and it was just floating down through there at, like I said, at a speed like where someone would be jogging almost. I mean, that's about the only way I've ever really compared it when I've talked about it other times, like the speed of somebody jogging. And whenever I looked at him, and he said that he thought it was a car, he had seen it before I had seen it. And then whenever I looked back, it had just like it started over again, like it just hit replay, and whoop, it was right back where when I first seen it, and it's coming back down doing the same thing again. I don't know why. I mean, I guess just because the moment, everything that was happening, I don't know if it just disappeared or if it just went on behind a tree. I don't remember. I don't think we really stayed that focused on it because I don't remember if I was just like arguing with him that there's no possibility that there could be a car back there with one headlight.
Yeah, it's a strange world. There's a lot when it comes to this Bigfoot world, man, that just you always walk away with more, at least I do, more questions than I do answers. And you've seen a lot, man. You've had a lot of stuff happen to you. I talked to a guest, man, it's probably been 7 months ago, come on the show that saw some blue eyes, and he kind of described them kind of in that way. But, you just you walk away scratching your head because you just don't know what these things are, man. And I think they're more than just flesh and blood, and that kind of explains a lot of the stuff that goes on too, man, with that. And I'm a Christian, and I don't back away from that. I think that there's definitely something to this more than just flesh and blood. But with all that being said, and having those encounters, man, I would love to know what your opinion is on these things, and what do you think they are?
Just in my opinion, just where I've just been listening for so long. I mean, just in the beginning time, I just thought more like it was just, I don't know, some kind of creature in the woods. I never really thought too much about it then, but ever since started having the experiences and then podcasts became a thing. I mean, that's what got me listening to podcasts was the Sasquatch, because I was just curious, wondering like other people have, and have these experiences, and that's what kind of put me into the where hearing all these stick breaks and all this and just so much stuff that's happened over the years. I'm like, these things have been around me every time I've ever been in the woods, more than likely, almost every time. But you know, uh, I've listened to so many stories. It's like you told me that you like to listen to Sasquatch Chronicles and the Confessionals, and just from listening to Tony Merkel and all the guys he has on there, and and then listening to Billy Carlson or something like that. I can't remember what his uh, that black guy that's always talking all the biblical stuff, ancient civilizations and all that stuff. And, just listening to all that stuff, and just they seem like they might be a part of like the descendants of what's left of the Nephilims or whatever. I mean, it kind of makes sense, where people see them all the time, where they'll walk behind a tree and they're gone, they disappear, or they disappear right in front of them. There's some crazy stuff that goes along with that. I mean, I haven't really experienced any of the super woo woo stuff. I mean, I have seen, it was actually just not even too long ago in my driveway, just right here to the the left of me. I was out here with my dog, and he was standing out here on alert, and I was smoking a cigarette, and it looked like a set of feet, like kind of like in summertime you're putting gas in your car, you got the little vapors or whatever in the mirage looking kind of look. It kind of looked like somebody was walking through the driveway, but it was just feet. That's all I really. I mean, it was only for like a second, but my dog was just looking dead on it. But he didn't take off, and I was like, it's probably time to go in the house.
That's why, man, I think that these things are more than flesh and blood. And a lot of people are like, well, how could they be more than that? But my thing is like when they're flesh and blood, they're flesh and blood, and when they're not, they're not. And I think that the Nephilim theory, that kind of really resonates with me. If you look at things, and you look at the big picture and all these different strange things that happen, man, they've got to be more than flesh and blood. And we're all just, we're taking educated guesses. But, one last question I'd like to ask you, man, and I usually like to ask my guests this, but if somebody's listening to this podcast and maybe they're not a believer and they don't know what to do with this stuff, man, what would you say to them?
I mean, they're out there. I mean, you can think I'm crazy. You can think I'm lying. I don't really care. But, I know what I've seen. And you spend enough time out there, you pay attention a little bit, keep it on the back of your mind and keep an open mind. And, things might happen to you. It's kind of
Yeah.
goes with, you can kind of manifest things as, you kind of put your thought and your energy into, because human beings are, believe it or not, we're special creatures. We definitely are. And, it's crazy. You can be out there and, everything's fine. And then just out of nowhere, snap of a finger, you're like, what's going on? Like, you get that weird feeling. And yeah, it's something else. But yeah, so I always try to tell people, I mean, you can, I don't usually like just openly talk about it just to anybody, but, that's what I always say, keep an open mind. I mean, you never experienced it, go hiking, get off the trail, go a different direction. See what you find.
Man, you need to keep your head on a swivel when you're out in the woods, because you just don't ever know what's around you. And it's just always smart to keep an open mind with this stuff, because it seems like more and more people are seeing these things, and it's such a strange world. But man, I appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. That was really good. I really appreciated it, man.
Yeah, no problem, buddy. And I got quite a bit more stuff, but it ain't really, nothing as crazy as what I just told you. I mean, just a few noises here and there, some vocalizations happening while I was mushroom hunting last spring. haven't really got to talk about yet.
Yeah, I'd love to have it back on, man. That'd be really good. I know you got a lot more to talk about, so we'll have you back on, man, and I appreciate your time. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me and Jacob tonight. It's such a strange world that we live in, and I love to hear these encounters, and it takes a lot of guts to come on here and share these encounters with people, but hopefully we're changing people's minds about these creatures, and then we're giving people a safe platform to talk about this stuff. But I appreciate everybody out there and hanging out with us tonight. Guys, stay prayed up. It's so very important. We'll see you in the next episode.